Hello, my name is Hannah Hurdle, and I'm the Library eLearning Specialist on Home Library. And in this video, I'm going to be going over how to evaluate and examine peer-reviewed sources. By the end of the video, you'll be able to examine the various ways peer-reviewed articles can be identified in databases, as well as verify if an article is truly from a peer-reviewed journal or not. So the plan for today, we have going to go over a little bit of discussion on content-specific databases. I'll review the different categories of information and then go over the different types of peer review. Then I'll show you how to access the databases and go through a couple of them. There is an activity that's linked in the supplemental content for this video. I'm not going to be going over the activity, but it is there if you want to practice what's covered in the video. I'll show you the discussion/debriefing questions, and then for questions, I'll have my contact information. So I'm going to go over some definitions before I continue. So research is just looking for information on a topic that will help you prove a claim. Peer review is a pre-publication process in which scholars, usually anonymously, review each other's work to improve its quality. And a scholarly journal is a periodical containing articles written by and for scholars, almost always peer-reviewed. Periodicals are publications that come out on a regular schedule, like journals, magazines, or newspapers. And then authoritative is a way of describing sources whose accuracy can be trusted. Scholarly journal articles and books are considered to be highly authoritative. So why do we use specific databases? Well, databases are like stores, and just like regular shopping, you need to compare and decide what's the best option for you. Databases can cater specific goals and information needs. You want to look for Prada at Target on Redbubble, but you can find shoes at those places. So when doing research, you want to look for a humanities-focused article in a science-driven database. Because there are many voices to be heard, it's best to not limit to just information specifically in the library, doing the library search, or even in the databases. All these choices you make depend on your information needs. So your information need might be outside of the library in some cases. There's three categories of information resources. The first are newspapers and magazines, which contain news. The articles are written by reporters who may or may not be experts in the field they are reporting on. However, many reporters are assigned beats, which means they often report on the same types of stories for years at a time. While articles may contain incorrect information, this can be due to how fast-paced the news cycle is. This doesn't mean articles from newspapers or magazines are bad sources. They may just not be what you need for a particular assignment. It's important to note that just because something is found outside of a library's database doesn't mean it isn't a good source. Sometimes you may find something that isn't an academic journal article that works better for what you need. All these choices you make depend on your information needs. For a higher level academic course, that may mean academic peer-reviewed journals, not newspapers and magazines. The second type of information resource is journals. Journals contain articles written by academics and/or professionals. Although the articles are written by experts, any particular expert may have some ideas that are really out there. If you want to use a journal article that isn't peer-reviewed, make sure you can identify the author and check to see if they are a credible source. Have they been doing research in this particular field for a long time? Do they work for a university or some kind of research facility? Think of things like that. Then the last information resource are peer-reviewed journals, which can be refereed or scholarly. These articles are written by experts and reviewed by several other experts in the field before the article is published in the journal in order to ensure the article's quality. The article is more likely to be scientifically valid, reach reasonable conclusions, etc. However, it is important to know that just because something's peer-reviewed doesn't mean it's free from bias. So now we're going to the different types of peer review. The first is a single blind review or single anonymous. Reviewers know who the author is, but the reviewers' identities are unknown. This is most common for science and medicine journals. A pro for this type of peer review is that reviewers are anonymous to allow them the freedom to give honest feedback. However, a con is that since they know who the author is, it can possibly influence decisions made regarding the article. The second type of peer review is the double blind or double anonymous peer review. Neither the reviewers or author know who the other is. This is more common in humanities and social sciences. A pro is that there's a fair chance, less chance for unintended bias. However, it's not impossible for reviewers to figure out who the author is. So if it's a very small community where only a few people do research on a topic, or if it's somebody who's done tons of research on a topic, it can be a little bit easier to identify who the author of that article is. The third type of peer review is open peer review. The reviewers know who the author is, and at some point, the author will learn the identities of the reviewers. Reviewers' names can also be published, possibly alongside their reports. Some open peer review journals publish early versions of articles before peer review takes place, so readers can see how the article is adapted and changed. The fourth type is post-publication peer review. It is possible an article be put under peer review before publication, but articles can also be published without peer review. Basic checks would be done instead. After the article is published, reviewers can be invited to do a peer review or add their own comments. A pro for this is that it allows a wider range of perspective because peer reviews do not end after the article has been published. However, just because an article is opened up to peer reviews and comments after it's published doesn't mean it will be. And comments and peer reviews that do happen are not always moderated. And then the last type of peer review is registered reports. The peer reviewed is split into two parts. The first part takes place after the study has been designed, but before any real research or writing has been done. After this portion of peer review, if the article is accepted, it will receive an in-principle acceptance or an IPA. As long as the study/article is successful and complete, the article will be published. So now I'm going to go out of the PowerPoint and I'm going to go to the library's website. And I'm going to show you how to identify peer-reviewed resources in the library. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to search directly using the library's homepage. So I'm doing a search for the Roanoke missing colony. I'm going to get rid of these limiters so I can show you where to find them. So I will always limit to the peer review journals limiter. And then I'd also go down to resource type and limit to articles. Because if you don't limit to the peer review, there are articles in the library's database that are both peer reviewed and not peer reviewed. So you want to use that peer reviewed limiter. However, just because you use the peer reviewed limiter, the system doesn't always filter out everything that's not peer reviewed. And sometimes something will say it's peer reviewed when it's not actually. Don't know why, but the system does that sometimes. So I'm going to go to the very first article. It says that it's peer reviewed. It has a little peer reviewed icon. You're going to scroll down to view online, full text availability. This article has one link. Sometimes it might have 10, 5. It just depends. So I'm going to go to that link. And so now we can see up at the top that it is listed as a scholarly journal. Sometimes in the metadata, if you scroll down, it'll tell you if it's peer reviewed or not. It doesn't here. So I'm going to scroll back up and you're going to go to the either publication or source title. This is the title of the journal. So it's right after the author's name. You're going to click on that hyperlink. So it's so in this case, okay, see, it messed up. I went back, I tried it again. So the system can be a little finicky sometimes, but now it's working and it tells me right here that this journal is peer reviewed so that I know the article that I'm looking at is peer reviewed. So if something like that happens, just refresh the page, go back, retry the link, and it usually will fix itself. So that is just searching in the library, straight into the library. I'm going to go back to the library's homepage, which is ualr.edu/library. And this time I'm going to scroll down to databases A through Z. I'm going to show you two different databases. The first one I'm going to go to is ProQuest Central, listed under the popular databases. Here you can go ahead and use that peer review limiter right here. So it's already limiting to meet the peer review, and I'm also going to add scholarly journals. So I have those two limiters. Again, just to make sure that you're filtering out as much as you can that's not peer reviewed. I'm going to go to that first article, and this database looks similar to the link that we looked at from just doing a library search, but a lot of when you search in a library, because you might get multiple different links, it's going to look slightly different. So it's just best to like be aware of that you're looking for the same elements, but it might just be presented differently. So this happens to be presented the same. So we see this is a scholarly journal. I'm going to go to the journal publication title again. Give it a second to load, and we can see that it's peer reviewed. So that's ProQuest Central. The last database I'm going to go to is Academic Search Complete. I'm just going to search for it. I go to the link. And if you're not already logged in, it's going to prompt you to log in when you're trying to access these databases. But I'm going to do a search for Lost Colony Roanoke again. And if you go down here, you're going to see scholarly peer reviewed journals. So every database, the limiters are going to be named slightly different, but you're going to be looking for something that says peer reviewed, and you're going to look for something that says academic journals, scholarly journals, or something like that. So I'm going to limit to scholarly peer reviewed journals. I'm also going to limit to academic journals. I'm going to go to my, let's go to this one. I'm going to go to my article, and you're going to see that this is set up differently. It doesn't look exactly the same. It says it's an article, but we're going to go to that source link, American Speech. And here it says that it is peer reviewed and that it is an academic journal. So this looks slightly different, but you're still looking for those same elements. So I'm going to pull my PowerPoint back up. Slideshow. Front slide. Okay. So these are the discussion / debriefing questions. These are just things that you can consider after going over the video, thinking about, when working, if you don't do that one, but do you feel like you have developed skills to determine if the sources are reliable or trustworthy, why or why not? Or what skills did you learn that make you feel more confident after watching this video? And then here is my contact information along with another librarian at Ottheimer Library, Chelsea Young. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me here at this email or phone number. Thank you.